Welcome to Straight from the Source. My guest today is Bryce Goldstein, Chico City Council member for District 7. Right, Bryce?
Yeah, it's great to be here.
Thank you. Yeah, thanks for joining us today. And today on a holiday when most people are sleeping in still and it's raining outside. Mm-hmm. And you're saying that this is actually probably one of the first times you've been to this building except for when you were running. Yeah. And this is the first time for you serving as an elected official, right?
Yeah, it is. I was an appointed official on the Planning Commission and the Climate Action Commission before that, but my first election was for this position in 2024.
Okay, so you were appointed to that commission. Was it something that you sought out, that you took an interest in, and you had to kind of like go through the phases of it and you got the appointment, or was it out of the blue?
I did have to apply, write up an application, show up to city council and speak, but it was not anywhere near as intensive as running for city council.
I would imagine. Like, did you, when you were running for city council, well, first of all, I want to know what made you decide that you were going to do this? Because I know it probably wasn't for the money.
Yeah, the $1,900 a month and option of health insurance is nice. That's really great to reimburse council members for their time.
Yeah.
But it's certainly not the big bucks that people think politicians make.
Right.
I have a day job. Yeah, I decided to run because after serving on the Planning Commission and the Climate Action Commission for in total 6 years, I knew that there was more that I could do to help my community. I didn't really want to run for city council. I saw the drama. I saw how people have to slog through politics to get anything done.
Yeah.
And I saw the way that people attack their local officials for whether they're not doing enough or their decisions are, too rash, or honestly because politics gets dramatic and there's a lot of money behind it, and then messaging gets really nasty. So I didn't want to run for years, even though I saw it as something that could be helpful.
Yeah.
But then, I gave in. I realized that I had all this experience on the Planning Commission and working as a planner, and that I could be a really good asset to our community.
So far, what has your experience been when it comes to members of the community being supportive or, on the attack, and also working with the other members of City Council?
Oh, my experience has been better than I expected.
Yeah.
Like, I saw the way that, honestly, the right wing attacked Alex Brown, who was a former city council member, younger than I am. And even though she was in a political minority, she got blamed for basically the entirety of homelessness in our city. And I was really not thrilled about that. That's part of the political drama that I was trying to avoid. But thankfully, my experience has been different. I find that even though I disagree with a lot of other council members, a lot of the time, we also are able to find our common values, like traffic safety, and we work together on that. So I've been having a pretty good experience. Of course, I do feel like it's been a little bit hard to accomplish all of the things that I campaigned on, and I feel a little like, it's hard.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm unable to accomplish my goals for, let's say, repaving our streets without more political change, without thoughtful actions in budgeting for our city. And all those things are really nuanced and can be hard to explain in a social media post or,
Right.
So it can get a little dry, a little boring, a little disheartening, but then I get to go to community events and speak to people and hear about what's going on in our city. And these are things that just really interest me that I wouldn't get to do if I wasn't on city council.
Okay, so let's talk about some of those campaign promises, the things that motivated you where you're like, I know I've got experience in this, it's unique, and I can offer something that's different. You come from a background of planning. So what are some of those key things that you were hoping to accomplish? Especially when it comes to transportation and planning and getting around.
Yeah, so I work as a transportation planner. That's been the main field I've worked in since graduating college, with a little sprinkling of working for the city of Chico as an AmeriCorps fellow doing climate action planning and outreach. So transportation planning has involved basically active transportation, like walking and biking, complete streets, like designing our roadways for all people to access our businesses, their homes, transit, walking, biking. And I also currently work in transit and rail planning. So I've kind of seen this wide variety of planning, but I haven't dove as deep into the infrastructure and engineering side, like, concrete management. So that's been interesting to work as a city council member and get to see how our roadway programs work for repaving the streets, filling potholes. But when I was campaigning, one of my friends suggested this slogan, tough on potholes, kind of a play on the tough on crime of the 90s. Because in my district, District 7, oh my gosh, we have so many potholes. I think that's true pretty much citywide, but especially in the older streets, we have crumbling infrastructure.
Yeah.
And our pavement condition index is not doing great. That's part of why we passed Measure H a couple of years ago in 2022. That's our local sales tax that is oriented at funding our roads as well as public safety. And I saw right after Measure H passed that a lot of those funds went towards police and fire. And, that's okay as long as we can balance the budget. But unfortunately, after that initial boost of Measure H funds in 2023, we've seen a lot less go to our roads. So I wanted to change that. So that's really what I mean. Tough on potholes is silly, but I want to make sure that we're budgeting responsibly is what it comes down to.
I mean, it's something that people care about so much. Of course, people care about safety, but I've seen the surveys. Like, I've been here for about 10 years, and I remember that was something as a reporter that I tackled really early on, was that people in our community are really passionate about potholes, especially when it's in their neighborhoods where they live. And that's the tough thing, right? Is that a lot of times the money might come through like the Esplanade corridor or something like that. That's everyone drives there. But I mean, sometimes, and that for a huge road overhaul, you can make that sort of thing happen, right? But for a neighborhood, sometimes a pothole fill is the best solution, right? For the short term. Yeah.
And then there are places where pothole filling just isn't going to cut it.
Yeah.
So Humboldt Avenue has been a focus for me because it hasn't been a focus for the city.
Yeah.
It goes basically through Chapman Town, which has been historically not just an underinvested community, but not even part of the city for so long, despite it being an island. And by the time that, I've existed in Chico, Chapman Town has been mostly annexed with a little area around, Boucher to Bruce Street, not annexed into the city.
Yeah.
But there's this area to the north where I live and where Humboldt Ave is just disheveled.
Yeah.
When it rains, it's just mud puddles along the side of the street.
Yeah.
The road is washboarded, and it's not in our capital improvement plan to fix it. And the city says, well, you can call the pothole crew, but can they address the fact that there is no safe place to walk and that it turns into mud in the rain? So that is a much broader issue. That's where we need Measure H funds, or even we can apply for state grant funds or federal grants to redesign a roadway like that.
So how does that all work? Because I know Measure H, I know that we pay for it, that voters approved it, but then when it comes to what the projects for the year are that it's going to pay for, is that something the city council just takes a year at a time or an issue at a time? How do you make it happen?
Kind of both. So we have the capital improvement plan for 10 years that was established right at the beginning of Measure H. And we've fallen a bit behind on that because of shifting funds around, so there's less money in the roads fund than was expected. And so that outlines projects like 20th Street or 3rd Street. It names specific roadways that we're going to improve. But then the pothole crew goes out on basically a complaint-based service. And so you can go, you can email right-of-way maintenance at chicoca.gov, or you can call. If you go to the city website, there's a number for public works maintenance on there, I think a specific one for pothole filling. And you can say oh, there's this pothole right at the corner of, XYZ Street and my other street. Can you come fill it? And they'll get that. And so that's not in a 10-year plan or even a 1-year plan. That's just per person. But then somewhere in the middle is how the engineering, the Public Works Engineering Director, Brendan Ottoboni, he will decide based on how much funding is available, whether we can really get to all of these projects that are outlined for, say, the 2026-27 budget year. In that capital improvement program, he might say, well, we were expecting $14 million, but we're only getting $7 million. So we're going to do half of the projects and then push more of them out to the 11th, 12th year.
Right. Yeah. Okay. So one thing that I think a lot of people are excited about and apprehensive about is the plans for revitalizing downtown, right? When it comes to the roads project. And I know that there have been different ideas pitched, like should we do fewer lanes, more parking spaces? Should we do more like wider bike paths? Like what's the plan? What would you like to see happen there?
Yeah, first of all, so downtown revitalization, it kind of started out as this downtown complete streets concept where we have 100-year-old sewer pipes and other utilities downtown that need to be replaced, and they are under the streets, so we're going to have to tear up the streets. Okay. And with that comes the opportunity to reimagine what our streets look like and how they could better serve our community. So for decades, we've had 3 lanes in each direction, Broadway, Main as a couplet, and there could be an opportunity to reduce 1 lane and use that space for things like a loading zone, a bikeway, wider sidewalks, trees, things like that. And a lot of communities have been reassessing their main streets. So we started out, before I was on the council, with the Complete Streets project, and a lot of business owners and community members were not super happy with how quickly those designs were being developed without a lot of community input.
Yeah.
And the possibility of removing parking was a real sticking point.
Yeah.
Now, there was an alternative that didn't remove any parking that I actually think we're going to come back to something a lot like it. That's my prediction. And I think, you know, on one hand, you could say we could have saved a lot of time and money by just going with that alternative that was thrown out. But I think it's still really worthwhile to get community buy-in.
Yeah, okay.
So that's what we're doing right now is a lot of public workshops. We've, as a city, procured a consultant to help with community engagement, and then the engineering division is overseeing what designs the community is okay with or even excited about, and then it will go to city council, I believe, in a few months once that community engagement process is done.
Yeah.
And we'll look at the final designs.
Do you think that we could see, it seems silly, but to me it seems like a big safety thing, the traffic lights actually go into the intersections? I have a 15-year-old driver with their permit, my stepson, and watching him not see those red lights made me realize, like, oh my gosh, if you don't know that there's a lighted intersection coming up here, it's really easy to miss.
I have an embarrassing confession.
Oh gosh.
So I do drive a car, and I am a very safe driver. I only got 1 speeding ticket in my life on 99. But when I was in college, so I went to college in Humboldt, and I would visit my sister and my friends in Chico, I did run a red light in downtown Chico.
Yeah.
And
because you didn't see it.
Yeah.
Yes.
So that's my embarrassing traffic
Yes.
safety confession.
Yeah.
But yes, I didn't see it. They're off to the sides and they're not super visible. So
Yeah.
that's a really good point. I'm going to look into that. I don't know if we're moving them closer into the visible
Yeah.
range in the intersections, but we should.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see. Let's talk about downtown, right?
Yeah.
So downtown, I went to Chico State. I came here in 2003 because I happened to arrive with my mom on a Thursday night when the Thursday night market was happening, and I just fell in love with the city,
Nice.
right? And a big part of it was that downtown area was so cool. Lately, it feels like I still love downtown. I still go downtown all the time just to go out to eat or just shop around. But I feel like we keep hearing about businesses shutting down. I don't know if this is just the norm. That's just capitalism for you. Some are, hey, more people are shopping online at Amazon and other things will take over. Do you have theories or ideas? Are you seeing trends? What's happening with businesses not being so successful and other ones that are stepping up? What do you see?
Yeah, I'm seeing some trends, and there's also a lot of questions in my mind. So to me, the people that I know who work in the service industry, serving your drinks and your food, they talk to their business owners, and they know that the overhead can be really high. You know, it costs a lot even just to pay the rent and keep the lights on, keep the building heated and cooled. PG&E rates are ridiculous.
Yeah.
So there are so many expenses, and I can't pinpoint just one thing from everyone that I've talked to, but I believe that there are things that we as a city should do to make sure that we keep rents affordable for businesses, that we can try to do whatever we can to keep the cost of utilities down.
Right. But can the city council do something about, PG&E? Like, what can you do?
Well, we're going to have a discussion on public utilities coming up.
Okay.
The city of Oroville is looking into how they can actually locally generate and transmit power to help their industries in their city and incentivize more companies to move there. So that's an exciting opportunity.
Yeah.
And Councilmember Winslow has agendized a discussion on public utilities so that we can start researching what we can do in Chico for that, because PG&E is just out of control.
Yeah.
Their rates are super high. We don't have any influence over them. And if we could bring any of that power back to our local region, then there's an opportunity. We also, as a city council, we voted to join Pioneer Energy.
I remember that. Yeah.
Yeah, and so that's basically a community choice aggregate where they buy power and transmit it and get a little bit of a lower rate than PG&E.
It'll be a little bit lower. So basically, whether you're a homeowner or business owner or a renter too, I mean, does it apply to everybody? You get to pick. So basically, you have two choices, right?
Yeah.
So Pioneer or PG&E. And we're thinking it'll be a little bit lower, but probably not so much lower, right?
Yeah.
Is it just the idea of, hey, but at least you have a choice?
Yeah, and it's not entirely independent from PG&E too.
Yeah, it's their lines, right? And so
Yeah.
do you think it's even worth it?
I think anything is worth it to be able to help our community fare better and pay less for electricity. But if there's an alternative, like if we could actually manage our electricity locally and save more money, then we should do it.
Okay. And then I heard something else, just staying on that topic of like helping those downtown businesses, that maybe there was going to be, like I know the ice rink, that was part of the idea, right? Something like maybe creating an entertainment zone or something?
Yeah, that's an idea that we haven't talked about yet as a council, but I've read about it in San Francisco and other cities. And you can let me know if this is a different concept than what you're thinking, but I recall San Francisco created a policy for entertainment zones, and they actually had to get the state to allow it, where the thing the state had to come in on was allowing alcohol on the streets.
Yeah.
And so you can designate a certain area, like if it's, let's say, Main Street during certain hours, you could allow alcohol to be consumed on the streets because you'll have live music and other such things, instead of having like a gated off little area for such things.
Right. Yeah, the alcohol thing's very interesting with Chico, because we have the legacy of Annie Bidwell, who did not like drinking, right?
Yeah.
And so I feel like there have been like workarounds, like at the Bidwell Park, like at the golf course, it could be in the clubhouse only, but not outside. And then wasn't there something recently where if there's like an event in City Plaza, you could get a permit to serve beer and wine, maybe?
Yeah, and they've had some outdoor concerts, and they'll have like a little section of the plaza where you can drink beer and wine, but you can't go up to the stage with that unless they've changed that.
Yeah.
It's kind of been a situation in flux, and so I should ask for an update on
Right.
where are you allowed to drink if there's a band playing?
What is your take on that sort of thing? Like, do you think that we should like honor the history of our, like, do you know what I'm saying? Like, it feels like at what harm? Like, is it harming the city to honor that, or is that what makes places like Chico so charming and lovely that people still care about that kind of stuff?
Well, at this point, part of the history of Chico is, we've got Sierra Nevada, and in the 90s, we were known as the best party town in the
That's
U.S.,
true.
right?
Yeah.
But I'm not really a fan of glorifying alcohol use.
Yeah.
Like, I think craft beer is great. I'm known to drink a beer and drink some wine with my friends, but I don't know that we need to have, drunk people out in the streets.
Yeah, that might not be the only way to boost downtown Chico. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not saying we need to save downtown through debauchery, but I also think that we could be a little more, I guess, what's the right word for this? A little more liberal about allowing alcohol consumption outside of a closed door area, because if you still have people monitoring people and making sure that they're behaving, then how is it really different than being in a little locked gate area versus in an entertainment zone?
Yeah, fair enough. It's, another thing we're seeing, of course, in downtown Chico right now as like the Warren settlement wraps up, it seems like there's this one group of, what is the terminology? Service resistant, maybe? People who...
Yeah, that's one of the labels.
What is your reaction to that label?
I don't personally have a reaction to it. I think that if that is the best way to describe that as a service provider, that people are resisting your services, then that's okay. But as long as you're not seeing that as the entirety of who that person is, because usually it's not somebody's choice to be struggling with addiction, for example. Like usually people kind of reframe that as not an addict, but a person who's struggling.
Sure. Yeah, fair enough. That is a tough thing. It's, it seems like Chico, through the last few years and all the struggles and the settlement agreement and everything, has created and increased resources. Like we have the pallet shelter, and it seems like that's going to stay open and stay available. I just was speaking with Lizzie Young with Chat, and she was telling me about like just how they keep expanding and like creating this like a place for somebody who, okay, they've been in the shelter, they're ready for the next step, but they can't get an apartment because they don't have a rental history. And so it seems like there are so many good things in the works, right?
Yeah.
But you can't tell someone, like, you have to go live in, like, you have to go to Chat, you have to go to tourist shelter, you have to go to the pallet shelter. So I guess my question to you is, like, when we see crews come through and offer resources to people, and then in City Plaza, like, the tents are up again, what do you think the solution is right now?
Oh man, I mean, you have to have enough services, and that has to be of all kinds. And you're so right that Chat is doing really good work, especially for getting people through that last step, hopefully, towards living in an apartment with a roof or a house. Chat has a really great program where they basically do like co-housing, master leasing, and getting people, maybe from the tourist shelter or off the streets into an apartment who don't have the credit score, or maybe a landlord would be really skeptical of saying, wait, you don't even have an address previously, how can I trust you to rent my house?
Yeah.
So Chat helps facilitate that. And then groups like True North run the tourist shelter, which is, more of the bare minimum. You have a bunk and you can access your services there. So we need all of those levels. And I've, for a long time, volunteered at Safe Space. Haven't had as much time recently, but I also really appreciate what they do of meeting people where they're at with that low barrier service for just, keeping someone out of the freezing rain for a night.
Yeah.
It's tough. We had months of this ad hoc committee on homelessness that Mayor Reynolds, Councilmember O'Brien, and I were on, and we had presentations from Chat and other groups on everything from code enforcement to care court to housing services and shelters. And what we determined from that was basically, wow, there are a lot of needs out there for different people experiencing homelessness who have different needs.
Yeah.
And I thought that was a really good conversation where, usually Mayor Reynolds and former Chief O'Brien and I, we don't always agree politically, but we were all hearing from the same speakers and kind of finding our common ground on what we can do on homelessness outside of the Warren conversation.
Oh, I have to just have this conversation. My phone keeps on going off. So my apologies, continue.
No worries.
Good thing for an Apple Watch, right? At least I can stop it. Technology these days.
You gotta have the little sign like in the movie theater. That's
right. Please silence your devices. I think I did silence it, which concerns me. I think it's that alarm, like we're making a reminder, and then I keep just hitting. I'm going to keep hitting silent though. We got this covered.
Okay.
So you were able to, with your other council members, kind of at least be on the same page that like we recognize these needs, right? Mm-hmm. That is so multifaceted. There's no one fix. But was there like an outcome? Is the ad hoc committee done? Is it wrapped up?
It's done unless we bring it back.
Okay.
there's going to be a conversation in probably the next few months about what we're going to do after the Warren v. Chico settlement agreement is over in about a year.
Yeah.
And that's going to be a really interesting conversation.
Yeah.
I hope that what we gained from this ad hoc committee, even though we didn't come out with tangible policy solutions like I would have liked, I hope that that will inform our post-Warren discussion, because we have all these good ideas of how to address homelessness. And once we don't have the Warren settlement kind of telling us what to do, I am a little bit afraid that we could go back to where we were before it and just say, well, we're just going to enforce and not give any place for people to go. And I hope that these discussions have made it clear that that's just not going to work.
Are you keeping an eye on other like California cities where they're not bound to a certain agreement post the Supreme Court ruling? Like, are there any cities that you're seeing that you like how they're handling it, and others where you're like, oh, let's not do that?
Well, every city's struggling with homelessness,
Yeah.
and that's also been clear. I used to hear a lot more of like, oh, it's a Chico problem because we're so nice. Everybody flocks here. No, like every city is struggling with homelessness. But yeah, it's obvious that there's a difference in how cities are handling it.
Yeah.
I can't name a perfect shining example, but there are cities that are putting a lot of initial effort in, or maybe have like a church or a wealthy donor who's like really stoked on putting up more pallet shelters, more tiny houses. Now,
Yeah.
the thing is, we actually have groups like that in Chico. And I believe that we as a city need to be working harder to facilitate that. Like North State Shelter Team has their proposals. First, they were looking at a managed campground and then tiny houses. And we did say that we're going to try to make it possible for North State Shelter Team to put tiny houses in church parking lots to house women. And something is just not quite connecting there. I think that the city actually should develop somewhat of a program to make that happen, and then maybe we don't even have to spend any money. We partner with an organization that already wants to do the work, but we set the policy.
Right.
So other cities are doing things like that.
Yeah.
But we as a city have historically said that it's not our job until we were sued. It's complicated.
Yeah.
But there's more we can do.
Yeah. In terms of what you've accomplished so far, like things, because there's so many things that we talk about, right? And okay, all right, we're making progress, and maybe we start a committee, or we pitch this idea, or it's in the works and there's public discussions. But so far, is there anything that you've accomplished that you feel really excited about or proud of?
Oh, man. Let's see. I have to think on that one for a second.
Or even something that you're like, I am determined that this is going to happen in the next upcoming fiscal year.
Yeah, I think right now I'm the most excited about downtown. I know we already talked about it, and I don't know if I answered your question about what I want to see downtown. I see myself as kind of like facilitating, taking in public input, and making sure that I vote based on that and not my own personal wants and needs. But I, as a bicyclist, I want to see bike lanes downtown. That's really my main goal. And it doesn't even have to be bike lanes per se. There are different types of bikeways.
Right.
I just want to see a downtown where people can bike into downtown safely.
Yeah.
And I want everybody to be able to get around safely.
Yeah.
Like, people can walk, people can drive. Maybe there's better wayfinding and access for parking. But that's my personal goal, is to not be, kind of pushed off the street by big trucks.
Right. Yeah. It's funny. I love riding bikes too. I live on like the northwest side of town, and so it's kind of silly. Like a lot of times we're like, we want to go ride like lower to Upper Park or something like that, but like, should we just pack our bikes in the back of the truck just to drive a mile or two?
Yeah.
And it's like, that kind of sounds ridiculous, but going on to Highway 32 and then maybe taking like 8th Ave and getting on the Esplanade, it's much better now, Esplanade, than it was the last time I tried to do this via bike. But it's tough when you live in somewhere so beautiful and you want to be able to get around town. You should be able to get around town via bike, but it just isn't safe in some small sections. I think it's like making those connections.
Yeah, it really is. Yeah.
The city's really trying.
Yeah. I'm lucky enough to live pretty close to downtown, and most of my district is pretty bike accessible, but there are always those spots that just don't connect.
Right.
And sometimes it's even out of the city's control, like 8th and 9th Street or the entire 32 corridor. There's been a recent repaving project. I'm sure everybody's aware if you've driven on 8th or 9th Street and your car, went over that weird bump because Caltrans was still repaving.
Yeah.
But that project didn't actually comply with the city's initial bike plan when it was developed about 5 years ago, the 32 repaving project. And they didn't put bike infrastructure on 8th and 9th Streets, which go through a residential neighborhood. And a lot of folks, including at the time Mayor Andrew Coolidge, wrote letters to Caltrans to say we need better bike and pedestrian access on this corridor that runs right through our town. And Caltrans said, no, we're doing what we're doing. This is a highway. So they own this right-of-way through our community and see it as basically a single mode of moving cars and trucks through when we actually need to cross the street.
Yeah.
People cross in my neighborhood to go to Bidwell Park.
Right.
Tying it back to what you're saying, a lot of people on bikes and people walking go from Chapman Town or Park Avenue and cross 8th and 9th Street, but have to wait for like 5 minutes for a gap in the cars.
Yeah.
So I get it. Like, I feel every day, like, how can we actually make it a better community for walking and biking? Like, there's so much more than just like the Esplanade bike path that we have to do.
And it's funny because like we've been talking about it in the context of like recreation, but I mean the cost of buying a vehicle right now, paying for insurance on a vehicle, the cost of gas, it's pretty expensive, and then on top of the cost of housing. But at the same time, I don't really think of Chico as a place where it's like, oh yeah, you can bike to and from work no matter where you live in Chico. I don't think that at this point that would be a life that would be tough for me to accept. Like even going from my house to where I work now, there are certain spots where it's like, yeah, that'd be a little tough.
Yeah, it really depends where you live and where you work.
Yeah.
I mean, for me, getting downtown, it's less than a mile.
Sure.
And yes, I cross like 4 major roads, but it's still very doable. But for a lot of people, it's not. I hear a lot of folks, who are really confident on their bikes say, like, you can bike anywhere in Chico. I don't know what anyone's complaining about, but they're a very small section. In transportation planning, there's this concept of level of traffic stress. And it's basically, how stressful of a road can you handle personally?
Right.
And the like cyclists in their spandex, they are like the 1% that they can deal with a road with cars going 55 miles an hour and they're off on the little gutter shoulder, or even something like, let's say 20th Street in its current condition by Sierra Nevada. There's actually a bike lane. It's like 1.5 feet on the asphalt and like 1.5 feet in the concrete gutter, and then there's like a weird bump. And the cars are going 40 miles an hour. Like, most people are going to bike on the sidewalk if they're going there.
Which you're not supposed to do, right? And then it's like a hazard for pedestrians.
Yeah, technically, I believe anywhere aside from downtown North, you are legally allowed to bike on the sidewalk.
Oh, okay.
But it's not a great idea, especially with e-bikes being so prevalent, that if you're comfortable going 18 miles an hour on an e-bike, well, the people on the sidewalk probably aren't comfortable with that. And I think that it's a really important moment with e-bikes becoming so common to, amplify our investment in bikeways. So I grew up in Reading, and they actually have done a really good job of creating bike trails, and they were kind of ahead of the curve on getting ready for e-bikes. And now their focus is more recreational, whereas in Chico, especially with the university, bikes are a little bit more of a mode of transportation to get to and from something. But I think we could be looking at what other cities are doing for preparing for e-bikes. We did have a conversation at City Council recently, spurred by the dangers of fast e-bikes in the park, and then people possibly getting hit by them while walking. That was a really important conversation to have. The outcome was we decided everywhere should be limited to 15 miles an hour, which generally it is in the park, but that we're going to look into ways to have better signage or enforcement to try to prevent those collisions. But next up, I've asked that we keep discussing that citywide, because as much as I love the concept of e-bikes for improving people's access, I mean, I have friends who are, in their 70s and it's harder for them to pedal and keep up. And so an e-bike with pedal assist can be great for them, but we need to make sure that we don't have unregulated vehicles that are going, at possibly speeds over 30 miles an hour.
Yes, in the bike lane.
Yeah.
Yeah, interesting. I know, I'm sure that other cities have like protocols in place. You'd think there would be state regulations about it, but I guess it's such a new thing. Mm-hmm. And at this point, if there's not a state rule, then it's up to the cities to figure that out.
Yeah, the state regulations are pretty limited. And I think that's good that cities can come up with their own policies on it. So the state basically just classifies e-bikes, and I think it's class 3 is essentially an electric motorcycle where they can go over, I think, 28 miles per hour. And some cities are opting to ban those on paths and areas where pedestrians might be, which makes sense because, I mean, if a car was going 28 miles per hour on a sidewalk, you wouldn't want that.
Yeah. Well, I know that, in the coming months ahead, you'll be looking at how to spend money coming up in the upcoming fiscal year. You'll hear from the fire chief, and I know they want a station here on Hicks, potentially. I know the police chief would like to build a whole new police station at some point, and everybody wants to hire more people, I'm sure, across all the departments. Do you have like public safety priorities specifically that seem more important to you than others? More urgent?
Yeah, I think right now my mind is focused on making sure that we maintain our roadway funding, because otherwise we're just going to see, once again, like before Measure H, just a lack of investment in repaving our roads. And that impacts our police and fire too. We obviously have to have good roads to bring our vehicles on, not just our personal vehicles, but also police, fire, freight. So that's my priority. And then we can also be planning for how we're going to make up enough funds to invest in longer term, more expensive solutions like Station 6 for the fire department and for this new police station.
Yeah, where does that money come from?
It's going to be so expensive to build those new buildings that we can't just have a 1-year budget item. It's not just a few $1 million that we can find under the couch cushions one year. We're going to have to save for it. So I trust that our city staff is going to start the planning process for where we're going to get those funds from.
Okay. Where do things stand with like unfunded liabilities when it comes to what we already owe to employees who have since retired and we owe them pensions and, bringing on new people? Is that still something that is a concern for making sure that that is paid in the future?
It's always a concern. We had that recent conversation at City Council about it. I disliked how it was framed as a conversation about outsourcing public works employees. And when I say I dislike that it was framed as that, that's what it was. I would have rather had a conversation on what's our plan for how we address unfunded liability in all city positions, but it was limited to non-public safety. Which felt bad that we were picking certain departments to discuss potentially outsourcing their positions. That was brought forth by Councilmember Van Overbeck. And I'm happy to have a discussion on unfunded liabilities. I think it's a good thing to bring up, but our city staff, our city manager, and our finance crew, they are working every year in planning for the budget to make sure that we are conscious of the unfunded liability and addressing it. I also don't feel that it is I saw a previous interview that you did where you quoted former Mayor Randall Stone as describing it as a boulder
hanging over. It was like when I was a brand new reporter, that's how he described it to me. I was like, oh gosh.
I don't think it's quite a boulder hanging over the city, but I think that if we don't do our due diligence, it could become that.
What is your personal thought about pensions in general? And this is like, it seems like one of those things like, gosh, I'd love a job with like the city or the state or the government, because it seems to be something that a lot of government jobs would guarantee to, retain and hire new people or good quality people who will commit a career to
Yeah.
your organization. So I get it, but at the same time, it's like sometimes it feels kind of painful thinking like the taxpayers are going to keep on paying for you even though you're not working for the city anymore. Maybe you have another job and now you're making $500,000 a year, and it's an interesting concept.
Yeah, well, when I was younger, I don't think I even knew that pensions existed.
Yeah.
Like, by the time I started working for the state as a transportation planner, and I was in my onboarding session and they started talking about my pension formula, I was like, wait, I'm sorry, there's a pension in this job? Like, I didn't know that was even a thing. I thought they got rid of that. Now, what actually the deal is for most state workers, you get a much lower pension formula than what people got prior to 2013.
Yeah.
So if I ever get a pension, it's probably going to be very small. So I'm not banking on that. And in my work for the government, I'm paying every month into that pension fund. And then that pension fund depends on the stock market mostly.
Yeah.
So I'm maybe a little bit negative about the stock market.
I mean, you could say that about a lot of different things when it comes to like investing in our futures, right? Like a lot of companies offer a 401k, right? And who knows? And some people are concerned that Social Security is not going to be a thing by the time that they retire. I even think about like, and this sounds maybe silly or morbid, but like, I try to save and I put a certain percentage away, but I still want to live my life because I could get hit by a bus next week.
Yeah.
So it's like, how much do we really save versus, because the future's so unknown.
It really is. And like, not to be a doomer or anything, but people in my generation, most of us don't envision that we are going to be 65 years old on a cruise ship or whatever. Like, we're lucky to be alive at 65.
Yeah.
And it's, I won't get too negative, but I did write a song called My Retirement Plan is Death. I think that's really how a lot of young people see the future. And the bright side of that, though, is this. I don't live my life like I'm going to retire someday and then finally I'll be happy.
Right.
I live my life in a way where I'm trying to enjoy it to the best I can because I don't know what the future holds.
I love that you said that because I was going to say the same thing. Like, this job, being in broadcast news, is not something you do if you want to be financially set for life. It's like, it's low pay, it's hard work, but most people who do it, knowing that, it's because we really, really love it. And like every Sunday night, my husband will say like, oh God, we got to go to work tomorrow. And he loves his job, but it's Monday morning.
Yep.
But I'm always like excited about it. And that's kind of how I feel too.
That.
Like, I don't want to like just do this for retirement. Like you said, because you never know what that's going to mean. But I mean, ideally, we all get the luxury of at least being passionate about the hard work we do to make a living.
Yeah. Any job is going to have its hard days for sure. But like if your job is hard days all the time, or you're driving 2 hours to work, and like maybe that's not the thing to do until you retire or die.
Right, for sure. So we have a little time left. I want to talk about music.
Okay.
So is this something that you've always, like, tell me, like, what kind of music? Do you play instruments? Do you sing? What are you passionate about?
Yeah, all of the above.
Yeah.
I've played music for pretty much my entire life. That doesn't mean I'm great at it, but I have fun.
Yeah.
It's been mostly like a social thing. I really enjoyed guitar class as a kid, and like learning to play music and write songs with other people, playing in bands, going to shows with my friends' bands. It's been my main social thing for my entire life. And right now, I'm mostly in one band. Actually, my campaign manager and we started playing music together. And then she was so organized that I asked if she wanted to manage my city council campaign, and she said yes. Shout out to Erin.
Yes.
And it's just been a really, really good thing to have in my life. I don't see it as my career, but I love playing music and the people who play music with me.
Are there a lot of venues in Chico that you would like end up playing at? And do you feel like there are a lot of opportunities for that and for other musicians?
Yeah, that's one of the reasons why I live in Chico. As mentioned, I grew up in Reading. A lot of my Reading friends moved to Chico because they were musicians, and this was the cool spot to go to college and or play at shows. And Chico also has all ages venues. Right now, Naked Lounge is the main one I'm thinking of, but my friend Tommy from high school, he moved here and he rented a house, and then he had shows in the basement until the neighbors called the cops too many times. Yeah, and like a lot of people have been able to do that, whereas like in Reading, there's been a few venues, but not a lot.
Yeah.
And where I was in college in Arcata, similar, college town, lots of creative people. There's a couple bars and places that would have live music and art. And then, you know, when I was looking for work after college, I knew that Chico would be a cool place to live as a young person and as a somewhat creative person, because we have these venues. And so that's one of the reasons why I'm really concerned about downtown. That's the main spot where you can have live music. We have Naked Lounge, we have Argus, sometimes Duffy's, Lost on Main, The Senator. The El Rey used to have shows, and I would love to see that saved and restored. Yeah, we recently had a few closures of places that would have live music or DJ nights, even if that's not my thing. Like, we need those to keep downtown alive. We need that nightlife and the creativity.
Yeah. Well, hopefully we'll see, you know, as some close, for whatever those reasons might be, we'll see others move in and offer that opportunity to
hope so.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, I'm hopeful that downtown is, even if it's changing, that businesses will fill those spots. Whenever I see something new open downtown, I get really excited. But I have my eye on it because I am concerned like everybody else. And I want to bring it back to your question on downtown. I also often debate with Councilmember Tom Van Overbeck about this one, but a lot of people have told me the rent is too damn high and businesses are struggling just to pay for their spot, which I think checks out because of just how many vacant storefronts there are or vacant office spaces. And we also, of course, have blighted buildings downtown that just aren't being rented out and worked on forever maybe, but we need to incentivize those property owners to, you know, just lease out their building, not have it be some kind of tax write-off. Some cities have enacted a vacancy tax, so if a building is vacant for too long, maybe over a year, then that owner has to start paying a tax, which to me makes sense because not just the disincentive to leave your building vacant, but also because if you have a blighted building downtown, you are negatively impacting everybody else.
Right.
And maybe those taxes could go into like downtown beautification.
Yeah.
I don't think as a council we would end up passing a vacancy tax, but that is something that the voters could do if they got so fed up with vacant buildings that they found that to be a good solution.
Very interesting. Maybe somebody will hear this and get something going. We'll see.
I'm always hopeful.
Yep. Bryce, thank you so much for being here. We really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Good talking to you. Thanks for listening today. I decided to offer this podcast after enough of you let me know that you wanted a deeper dive into certain stories than you get on our TV broadcasts. We elect certain people to represent our voice, but who are they really? My hope is that this podcast answers that question. I love your feedback, and I want to know who you'd like to hear from next. Just fill out that comment section and leave us a review on Apple Podcasts, YouTube, or Spotify.